It's gonna say we're going live, but it's not actually live yet
Okay, sounds good.
because it sends the stream, but then you get to manually start it when you want to, I
I
think.
see.
Oh, well, nope. It's live. We're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the.
Technology is our friend.
Exactly. Welcome to the Folk Music Educator podcast. My name is Phil Kramer,
And I'm Erin May Lewis.
and we are two old friends and current online music educators, and we have uh, started a podcast, I guess, around 2 years ago, and have hopped on and off with posting regularly. And we're going to be trying some new stuff this um, this year that I'm excited about. And so we're going to try to
Yeah.
do this as a live stream kind of things that we then throw off up onto the good old podcasting stuff. So if you're seeing us on YouTube, hello. If you're hearing us
Hello.
on Spotify, hello. And
Hello.
we're excited to chat with you. So, hi, Aaron.
Hi.
How you
Happy
doing?
New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
And happy 12th day of Christmas.
Happy 12 days of Christmas for sure. We having a good week so far?
Yeah, it has been good. I, in the past few years, I've started into my full on teaching routine the
Mm.
very first week of January. So I just, like, January 1st rolls over on the calendar and I am full in it. And this year, I kind of left the first week really quiet. So I feel like I'm easing into the year. And I'll be honest, it feels quite lovely.
I did a similar but different thing where I gave myself a 1 week um, break at the end of the year. I
Uh
scheduled that
huh.
out and didn't have it, and that was my only little vacation that I gave myself for 2023, and it was very much
Oof.
needed. And I think that is going to be very different going into this
I
year.
was gonna say, I feel like one of your resolutions should be more than one break in the whole year.
Yeah, especially during the most stressful time of the holidays where everything's made up and the
Right.
points don't matter.
Right. I'm thinking, yeah, I took the week between Christmas and New Year's off. I didn't teach except a little bit on Friday that week, but I also don't count that as a week off because it was family event, family event, family event, another thing to do, family event, see some friends, family event. Like that's not really a rest.
Oh my gosh, you're exactly right. Honestly, it's like during the Christmas time, you get a part-time job of responsibilities, but instead of getting paid, you pay for it. You are constantly
Oh.
buying presents and expensive foods and all. Yeah, it's a pain. So, but
Yeah.
it's over
Yeah.
now. It's in the rearview mirror, and that kind of brings us to it's really on theme for one of the things we were kind of talking about today of just reviewing the last year of our own businesses and seeing what we like about went well with being teachers of the folk music traditions and what we're kind of thinking for this year. And yeah, I'm excited.
Do you have like regular routine of things you go through or questions you ask at the end of every year, the beginning of a new season? Do you have like a I always do it this way
I can't
method?
s- I can't say that I do, though
Yeah,
I
me
can
neither.
say that I should.
Maybe. I don't I feel like I do some amount of reflection every year. I go through some process, but I don't do it the same way every year,
Yeah.
which feels more authentic to me because every year is different, right? So if I'm trying to fit the reflection process and the planning process into a formula, I don't know. It feels like a bad approach to a thing that is more fluid, but
There's a great quote that's kind of a play on that idea of how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. but of
Mm-hmm.
like what your life will be a year from today is a direct reflection of what you're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a lot of ways I end up trying to think of my life in a lot more of that daily routine kind of system. And for some ways,
Mm-hmm.
that's really helpful, but it's good for, a sense of calm and serene throughout the day. But it's a little bit
Mm-hmm.
difficult on a business um, idea of they're like, well, what are you going to be doing in November? I'm like, oh. I'm sure
November?
I'm doing
Are you
something.
kidding me?
And
Right.
versus a lot of my other business friends that are like, okay, what are the classes that I'm teaching? Okay, I have these things. This one's already kind of filled up, and this. I think you are kind of like of that camp a little bit.
I've I've been working in that direction. So a thing that I have learned in the last couple of years is that people generally are oriented more naturally to either looking back or looking forward.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us then work really hard to be present, and a lot of the like affirmations and meditations and practices, the grounding practices are like how to pull you into the present moment. But I've also realized that that instinctive, either forward or backwards, looking past or looking future, it really takes someone who's the other to help you do that. So I
Interesting.
instinctively am a past person. I am very reflective. I do a lot of like life recaps constantly. That's just, it's very natural for me to be like, "Oh, let's look back and see what we've done and let's calculate the past and let's keep spreadsheets that keep track of what happened over the last year." The problem is I have no natural orientation to looking forward. And so I have all of this data about what has happened and no idea what to do with it because I can't figure out how to pull it into looking at the future. But fortunately for me, I married someone who's naturally always in the future. And so
Interesting.
he will never look at what's happened in the past as a way of gathering information for the future. He's just always thinking about the future.
Interesting.
But that has helped us pull each other into the direction that we don't naturally look. And because of that partnership, I've taken some really intentional steps to do forward future planning things. So, for example, one of the things that my husband suggested 3 years ago was let's plan all of the 6 week courses for the whole entire year and put them up all at once as if you were looking through a university course catalog. And
That's
so
pretty brilliant.
now I've done that for 3 years, and I will tell you, the week that I put all of that together, I hate my life.
Yeah. Okay.
And the week after it's all done, I think, wow, I never have to do this again for another one whole year.
Exactly.
Aw,
Speak of the devil. Hello there.
thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Did
as a little
Did he
aside,
bring snackage?
my mama got me these like
Oh,
terracotta warmers.
that's so cool.
And I pulled them out but hadn't figured out how to use it yet. So he brought it to me warm so my tea will stay hot.
Look,
Oh.
everyone deserves a Justin in their lives. I like that.
Oh.
But well, I think that's I read a book recently. I think we've talked about it before. Of this, it was a book about disability in the U.S. and everything,
Uh-huh.
and it
Is
was
it
one of my
this the
favorite.
like tech one? Tech
Yeah,
and
the techno ableism, against techno ableism by Ashley Shrew. I'll have to double check that. But
yeah.
she talks about technologies in a unique way. There's a lot where she kind of expanded it to not only mean like actual tech, things that run on
Uh-huh.
electricity, but also like ideas that help people with specific people accomplish specific goals or doing things like that. And one that was really interesting is they talked about with kiddos that have struggle with ADHD or like sitting still or sitting there or some sort of neurodivergency that um, D&D can be a really good technology for helping build like so like social understanding and
Uh-huh.
group
Because it sort of
dynamics.
gives rules for the social hierarchy.
Yeah, there's like just like things that will make everything run smoother, and you can also
Uh-huh.
experiment in a role playing kind of environment how to
Yeah.
try on different personalities and find ways that are appropriate. So it's like you're getting to be yourself, but in a more detached way that's a little bit safer and a little bit more of a sandbox. And it's been making me think about that idea of what are the things like the infrastructures we build in our lives, and hearing you kind of talk about, oh,
Mm.
I have a much more natural tendency to be looking back at the next year, but
Mhm.
maybe not so much of a tendency there. So maybe I'm
Mhm.
bringing in these technologies into my life, bringing in these little practices and methods to build up that infrastructure in that part of your life is a really interesting kind of idea. And it's making me curious about ways that I can do that in my own studio going forward.
So I know you haven't had time to contemplate this necessarily, but do you think you more naturally look back or forward? Are you more past oriented or future
Um,
oriented?
that's a
Or
great that's a great question.
are you awesome at balancing it? Because that would be cool and I would aspire to be like you.
Well, for me, I talk about with my students a lot of the time that I have a hard time trusting the ideas of goals or
Mm.
resolutions because I
Hmm.
feel like goals are usually set by much dumber and more young, like naive versions of ourselves in the past.
Well, that's fair.
And
Past goals are always set by past us, right?
past
And
us,
past us never has all of the information.
they never know what it's like.
Hmm.
And so for me, as much as um, I want to look back. There's sometimes a little bit of like, oh man, I really messed that up, or I didn't understand certain things. And as much as I want to look forward, there's a lot of times of like I'm growing a little bit of distrust in it because I'm like, oh, I am
Hmm.
currently the younger and more naive self looking forward with
Yeah.
that. And but I would say if I had to pick between the two, it would probably be looking forward. It's probably that kind of idea, but I
Hmm.
don't currently have a lot of the skill sets that I would like to have to make that more of a successful ambition. Most of the time, it's like,
Hmm.
ooh, it would be really cool if I could do this thing. Look at this plan, and then I have successfully gotten the dopamine I needed from that idea. I'll never touch it again, and
Uh-huh.
move on with the rest of my day.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that happened this week is husband and I went on a coffee date to do some like, let's do our annual future planning, right?
Aw,
And what I do every year is I find there's always a plethora of things on the internet the first week of January telling you the best way to plan your future, right? So I just randomly choose one every year because I figure it's more a prompt to get you started in the process than it really is like a again, specific roadmap that you have to follow exactly the same process, right? So I printed one out and it started with what are your 10-year goals?
okay.
Okay, so
Ooh,
here's
man.
here's the thing I think is interesting about this. I looked at that and I was like, 10 years. That's incredibly overwhelming. I have no idea where I'm going to be in 10 years. I have no idea what the world is going to be like in 10 years. I can't
Yeah.
possibly come up with 10-year in the future goals. Like I feel pretty confident making 1-year goals, and I am on the edge of being able to contemplate 5-year plans. Cannot imagine 10. My husband's like, 10? All right, we can do this. Starts talking about all the things in his mind and then goes, well, what about in 15 years? In 15 years, we'll be this old and this is what we want our lives to look like. Well, what about retirement? What do we want our lives to look like when we retire? How long is retirement from now? Like 25 to 30 years? Okay, these are the things we want for retirement. And because these are the things we want for retirement, that means these are the goals we need to set for ourselves this year in order that in 30 years we have. And
Ah.
I was like, I could never get there by myself. But when we did the process, it was true. It actually, like looking out 30 years in the future of what do we think we want to have in place, made what do we need to work toward this year super easy to imagine and to make concrete. And I thought, hmm, that's a thing I didn't know. I didn't know that starting as far down the road as you can imagine with what you hope for can give you such clarity in the present moment.
That's
I just
very
never saw
interesting.
it. Yeah,
That's
it was
very
really
interesting.
interesting.
And I think that's probably a skill set that I could be better at. And I'm a little nervous. I would say I'm nervous to do it because I kind of growing up as a um highly people pleasing kind of kid. There was a lot of
Hmm.
times that I made my goals based off of what I think would very much please the authority figures in my life or the people that I cared about.
Yep.
Yeah, and I
What
think a
what
lot of
are
people
what are the goals that bring me into the closest to like social norms or social expectations and
exactly. And I think one thing that really was a turning point for me with that is when um I had been out of school for some time and I got asked um to come in and do a solo and ensemble adjudication at my old high school.
hmm.
And it was kind of a last minute hire. They're just like, oh, would Phil be able to do this? And my dad's like, yeah, I'll call him. And so I drove up and I was really nervous because I didn't feel very proud of what I was doing a lot professionally at the moment because last time I had seen a lot of these other teachers and all these like people that I knew in high school and was they were really emotionally invested in what I should go do. I should go out and become a teacher. I should go out and be a college professor or this or that, this and that. And I was freelancing. I was a freelance musician and doing
Uh-huh.
all these things, just very different than all that. And so I was a little afraid they were going to be kind of disappointed or feel like their investment of their time wasn't as big.
Yeah.
And I go and I'm doing the adjudication and everything's going well. And they go, we're going to have a break for lunch. All of the teachers are going to go have some lunch and then the kids will come back in an hour. And so I went into the lounge and I see all of these music teachers that I had known and that I had interacted with. And they all looked up at me and they go, hey, nice to meet you. And after talking, I realized I was like, most of these people have no memory of who I am anymore. And
Interesting.
and I at first was like, how dare you?
I was important here.
I was important, but then I realized I was like, okay, if I do the math, thousands of students over the course of their careers. And it's just impossible to really remember all of them, even all of the student conductors, all of the things. And after chatting a little bit, it started to jog their memory. Oh, yeah, hi, yeah, Phil, hi. And there was a little bit of memory. And I honestly felt very relieved realizing that, like, oh, they're not sitting here holding their breath. They're not sitting here doing these
Right?
things. Like, a lot of that um, pressure we put on ourselves is self
Hmm.
inflicted. And it
Right.
really helped me realize, like, whoa, I am in no way responsible to uphold this version of myself that I created when I was younger.
Right.
And
And like, I am not a disappointment to these people.
exactly. And so, like, for me, I tend to go with values a lot more now. Like, what do I value
I like
about my,
that too.
yeah, like, what are the things that I value about? And so I've been talking about this with my students this year. I'm talking about what we should be
Hmm.
building. And, like, what about the banjo do you really value versus like a guitar or an electric bass or the oboe? What draws you here? And there's a lot of time the
Mm.
talking of community or the talking of, just how bright and pleasant it is to play or the ease of access compared to some other instruments. And for some of my fiddle students, they're like, I like the complexity, I like how it's just like a little physics equation in my brain that's going the whole time. And that helps me set a much more, like, set the pace and the tone for their lessons going forward, is going by values versus goals.
That's interesting because for my own business, I feel like I do a lot of value-based prioritization. I
Yeah.
figure out what my values are. That served me really well. And I never thought about asking my students, not what are your goals this year,
Yeah.
but what are your values and which things do you want to lean into? That's so fascinating. I'm gonna try it.
We definitely should. And in the same.
And I wonder what if it would be if my the kids I teach would be able to identify that. It's less concrete. Or if there's a way I can frame it for kids.
It's an interesting idea, and I do have to admit, for anyone who might be running in, because, like, we are like, it's been a hot minute since we've done a podcast
It's true.
episode.
We're like, oh, we've been podcasting for 2 years, which is just, we've been recording our conversations and then leaving them on our computer for two
Forgetting to
years.
edit it. Exactly. um
So, yeah, it's
yeah,
true.
but I'm a multi-instrumentalist teacher. I teach fiddle, banjo, mandolin, guitar, and a little bit of bass, but almost all of my students are adults. I only have one student that is a 15-year-old, and everyone else is, the lowest age is 22. And so, no, 19. I have one 19-year-old. Anyway, and versus Aaron, who has a lot more on the either side, a lot of
Yeah,
um,
I do. I have a lot on either side. It's true. I have the like 7 to 15-year-old
yep.
collection of students, and I have mostly retired adult students. And so there is kind of a gap in the like 20 to 30, well, 15 to 35-year-old kind of window. There aren't a lot of people. Although I have a couple now that I'm working with, which is it's kind of fun. Yeah.
That's interesting. I like
Yeah.
that.
Um,
But
but by and large, the demographic of people who are taking, and I'm strictly a mountain dulcimer teacher, so it's like a very, very niche focused um, thing. But the majority are retirement folks coming to the dulcimer, often as their first musical experience or their first musical experience since high school. Um,
the begin
and
againers.
yeah, it's really fun. And it is really inspiring to me. I say all the time that my senior adult students inspire me so much to be a person who continues to learn new things and to be curious about the world and take on things that I'm really bad at and do them anyway. Um, it's really hard, you know, the older we get, the harder it is to do something we know we're not going to be good at. because we have more things that we're already good at, and it's really hard to be brave enough to do something you're not good at yet.
Well, and honestly, like to me, that's I'm like, ooh, that sounds like a value based approach to the music world and then itself. And I think that's one thing that I truly love about these genres that I try to help like push into like with my students. And I think that I myself probably should explore a little bit more in my own business is sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but let me rephrase phrase this of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yeah. Um when we imagine the performer, like we imagine the music that we're listening to. For me, I come from a very bluegrassy tradition. We
Hmm.
tend to think of the really hot players, the players that just play really well, as though they are the figureheads of the music a little bit.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think that's reasonable. We listen to the albums, but when you go to the actual like festival grounds where the people are camping, where all these things, you realize just how many skill sets and how many different backgrounds it takes to really create this big, beautiful, diverse community. The people who they're able to host house concerts, the people who make the instruments, the people that are the experts at the camping and making it comfortable and all these things. And it's this um there's a lot of ways to approach. There's not one way to think and love and appreciate this music, and
Hmm.
you can really build a beautiful life around whatever values you're kind of stepping forward. And those are the things I try to instill in my students. I have like one student who is very they're growing great as a musician, but I really kind of pushed them to like, hey, you have the you have the temperament to have house concerts, and now they have them all the time. They have these
Oh,
like these
yay.
nice like these big folk and old time musicians. They crash on their couch and they do stuff at their and they're having such a
Uh-huh.
rich life getting to be a part of that. And um I there's um yeah, there's just a lot of really fun ways to participate in these communities, and I think that's what I want to be able to encourage more in 2024 and find ways of helping my students do that and experience it.
Yeah, the community and the culture of the music is something I love hearing you talk about because you are so good at helping your students identify and become a part of that.
Oh, shucks, thanks.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so as a wrap up, I'm thinking about doing a couple rapid fire questions.
oh, okay. I'm here for this. Let me
I know we've never done this before, so out
new
of the
new
blue.
model. I'm here for it. Okay.
So what's one thing that you're proud of from last year?
Ooh, one thing that I'm proud of from this last year. Um, I helped one. I have one student who, when they started taking lessons with me, they didn't play an instrument before, and now they are a full blown multi instrumentalist. They take uh, 3 lessons a week with me: a
Oh my
mandolin, a
goodness.
banjo, and a guitar lesson.
Yeah.
And they have fully adopted the personality, the persona, and they live in the UK and they travel to the United States for IBMA, for all of these things.
That's amazing.
They just and it's so rewarding to see someone who this very brilliant dude just so fully embrace and love these things. And so I'm pretty proud of that. That's something I'm very proud
Nice.
to be a part of their journey and exploring that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh.
How about you? What are you the most proud of?
Um, well, it's kind of easy this year because the thing I'm most proud of is that I went to Europe for 4 months
You did
and
that.
I was able to keep teaching online. I was able to connect with so many musicians, which is everything I hoped for and was afraid to believe could really be possible. And I just feel really excited about and proud of the way that came together. And there's a
That's
big
awesome.
part of me that's like, all I want to do is go back to Scotland.
I,
But
I totally get
Kansas
it.
is nice too, I guess.
that should be a that should be a T-shirt that you can wear.
All I want to
Kansas,
be is in Scotland. Kansas is nice too, I guess.
perfect.
Uh, okay, what's one thing you're looking forward to in 2024?
Ooh, I am I am trying to be better about actually recording and releasing some originals and some arrangements, all that kind of stuff. I would really like to be a little bit braver about sharing my skill sets with the world and not.
I
Yes.
was going to ask you next, what's something that terrifies you
Yeah, that
and requires bravery? I think that's it. Oh.
I feel very happy that I have found a place online in sharing comedy stuff. I had someone
Mhm.
call me the Roy Clark of TikTok, and that made me so
Oh.
excited. Um, but I do have to admit, I have refrained from sharing a lot of my live playing for a while, and that is something
Mhm.
that I would like to be better about sharing. So, yeah,
Mhm.
here we go. How about you?
Yeah. So, one of the things I'm doing in my 6 week course collection this year, I guess,
Yeah.
offerings, is I'm expanding my teaching ear training into
Ooh,
actually 5 different breakdowns
nice.
of rhythm and melody and chords and writing it down after you've figured it out and then bringing it into a jam and doing it in real time.
Interesting.
And I'm excited and also a little bit scared because that's not what I feel like is my strength. It doesn't come most naturally to me, which in some ways I think qualifies me to teach it. And in some ways, breaking it out that far makes me feel like we're going to have to go pretty deep into it. And
Yeah.
it does feel kind of scary. And then, yeah. And I've had on my list for 3 years to write another Mountain Dulcimer instructional book. And I have a lot of inner friction and just difficulty working with my brain to do it and not against my brain to do it. So I want to figure out actually how to hire someone to sort of be a project manager on that. And
Interesting.
I've never, outside of, like, hey, do you want to do this gig with me? It pays $150, we'll split it. Have ever hired anyone. And
Yeah.
so figuring out what that means and what's involved in that and like even what is the job description of what I'm looking for because I don't really know. I just know that my brain is not doing a good job of figuring it out by myself. So,
I totally pick up what you're putting down. I often wonder if it would be great if I often wonder if we should put together a co-op of go, hey, we have 5 people that are all wanting to create resources. Can we hire one person that just we all pool our money and then we're just constantly sending them things and having them create like format it and make it look pretty and
Right. Or like, just tell me what to do next.
yeah,
I'm
that
pretty good at doing the thing if I know what the next step is. The problem is me figuring out the next step takes like 7 months and then it takes me a long time to create a book because it takes too long in between to figure out what the next step is. By the time I figure out what the next step is, I forget what I have already gotten together and I get very stuck. And so that's that's a goal I had last year that I did not achieve. And if I get too in my head about it, I can really get into a shame spiral about not doing the thing which seemed so obvious and simple. And then I pull myself out of that and say, okay, so what tools did I not have to be successful at that? And how do I figure out how to put those in place?
I had someone I was thinking not to completely open a new can of worms, but I'm going to.
I was going to say my attempt at rapid fire definitely is like, nope,
It,
we're not good at that.
we are musket reload times here.
I'm
But
here for it.
um one of my favorite little novels, science fiction novels, is The Martian by Andy Weir.
Okay.
And what was really interesting about how he wrote that book is it started off as a short story that he released for free as a blog. And
Hmm.
then he started to add a little bit more. And then someone goes, "Hey, you got a little bit of the science wrong." He goes, "Oh, you're right." Goes back, fixes the science, and starts going and had almost like an open source version of telling this story. And he started doing this and making it, and it got longer and longer and longer and longer and longer. And finally, as he's getting close to the end, one of the guys reaches out and goes, well, he's like finished it at this point. One of the guys goes, "Hey, it's a real pain to try to read this whole thing here. I'd like to read it on my Kindle. Could you put it on my, like, put it up on Amazon?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And tries to do it. And he goes, "Oh, man, like, I can't release it for free. I don't want to sell. Like, okay, I'm putting it up for $1. That's the lowest amount I can do." And immediately becomes like one of the best sellers of the year. And
Wow.
people are like, "Okay, yeah, you have to okay, this is a great book. Let's put an actual like release of it, hard copy, and doing all these things." And he just kind of got pulled along with the tide into this, into releasing a book. And
Hmm.
I've heard of people doing similar things where they go, "Hey, I'm thinking about writing a book on this topic. Who wants to have a copy?" And people all buy the book. And not only are you like get the book, you're getting access to every release and the process of it. You're building the rough drafts, you're building
Hmm.
the everything. And so you're, the people who are buying the book are also in kind of a part of the process of building the thing. And you can come in at any time and continue to purchase the book, but they can, it might be 4 or 5 years after the initial purchase and you're still entitled to all the updates of it going forward.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Because because people being involved is definitely a thing that motivates me.
is it? Did I get that?
Yeah, a
Okay.
100%. That's why the like live in real time Zoom sessions work so well for me because there are going to be people on this date with this expectation of content.
Yeah.
And so it's super easy for me to create that. But
Yeah.
if I have to create that for imaginary people in the future who may or may not appreciate it or whatever, or, I have to try to answer all of the potential questions that could come up someday in the future when I am putting this together now, it feels nearly impossible to me.
Yeah, like if you released a thing on chords and you released it to the group and the group goes, "Dude, have no idea what you're talking about." And you're like, "Is that
Right.
pretty universal?" You go, "Yeah, no idea." "Cool. let me rewrite that.
Exactly.
Versus you release the book and there's nothing you can do after the fact.
Yeah. Huh. Ooh.
I
Maybe I'm
gave a
not hiring a person. Maybe I'm finding a collective.
ooh, that's a good quote there. I like that one. I like that.
Wheels are spinning. This
Well,
is why I love this. This is
I
why folk music educators have to talk to each other and um,
exactly, and I think honestly, this is a great system. I like a peek behind the curtain here for a second, there, folks. I think this idea of just have two people who do what we do having a conversation with maybe a central theme is a good way of doing this. And so we're excited. We're hoping, as long as schedules allow, that we're going to try to do this way more often now and just kind of do
Friday
this
live streams.
Friday live streams. And so we're, I think we have promised for the month of January. We are promising to do one every month, every week this January, and we'll go from there.
That's right.
So it's great.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much for listening to us. You can definitely find us on Folk Music Educator Podcast on uh, Instagram,
And
and
Facebook and YouTube.
you can yeah, on YouTube. You can Google us if you want to stay off the social medias. I get it,
Yeah.
and you're welcome to contact us if you have any questions and or want to
Yeah.
take lessons or just want to say hello. And we're happy to meet all of you. But my friend, thank you so much for making a podcast with me,
Thanks. Hey, our tagline is always a teacher.
and always a student.
See y'all.